like I said, you want to log into Schoology. You want to go to Groups, R3 Reading Response Record. We are looking at discussions. This is week 8, R3 discussion 8 style. It is the 8th week of the school year, so that's why we're doing discussion 8. And yeah. So I want to scroll there. Open up. All right, so there are two main things that you're identifying today in your post and reply. So you are identifying, you're going to choose 3 of the following sentence starters and write a brief reflection for each. So in other words, you're going to choose 3 of the sentence start, and you're going to just finish the sentence about your book that you are currently reading. So you're going to choose 3 of those. Then you're going to explain the author's purpose and who the author's intended audience is. So we're choosing 3 sentence starters and completing them, explaining the purpose and intended audience. These questions here are to help you figure out what the author's purpose is and the intended audience. You don't have to answer them specifically. So if you look here at my post, which if you scroll down to post number 7, that's where my example post is. So I have title, Mortal Engines, book 1. My title is underlined. It is also italicized, and it has proper capitalization. My author is labeled and is properly capitalized. My salutation, dear y'all, with a comma after it. And then 3 of the sentence starters. I chose, I'm surprised that, I realize, and one consequence of blank is that. And if you look here on the board, I have written out those sentence starters so that you can look here while you're writing. So I did this one, I'm surprised that. I did this one, I realized, and I also did one consequence of blank. Could be da 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 da. So let's first look at how I finished the sentence starters. So I'm surprised that the author created such a weak male protagonist. Tom is truly a naive, stupid boy who refuses to see deceit anywhere, especially those who set out to harm him, such as the antagonist, a trained assassin, Valentine does. So about my story, I finished the sentence, I'm surprised that, by talking about specifics from my story. Second sentence starter, I realize the author chose such a weak male protagonist to allow for character growth, wisdom, and real-world experiences, including joy and sorrow, so that we, the readers, see Tom's full development. So I took the sentence starter, I realized, and finished it with specifics about my story. The last sentence starter I did is one consequence of Tom being such a wuss is that Valentine attempts to murder him by tossing Tom overboard. Yet, Tom believes Valentine to be a hero and mentor, while falling to his doom off the side of Attraction City, London. Tom doesn't want to admit Valentine's treason, even as Valentine is personally attacking Tom. So I gave you specifics about my book that surprised me, specifics about my book that I realized, and specifics about an action on my book that had a consequence. 3 sentence starters. The second part of today's writing prompt is to explain the author's purpose and intended audience. So, the author's purpose in this first installment of Mortal Engine series is to make his audience question their own values and personal beliefs concerning technology by experiencing a science fiction dystopian society story. So I've given you the general purpose of my story, which is to question values, and how he accomplishes that general purpose is through the fact that it is a science fiction dystopian society story. Reeves would be my author's name. The intended audience would be anyone who questions the innate belief that all technology improves society as a whole. So the first part is the 3-sentence starters. Second part is purpose. Third is audience, intended audience. Sincerely, comma, and my name. So that is how you do the post. Now, before we scroll to look at an example peer reply, I want to make sure that you understand that if you look at people who've already posted, over 75% of them are incorrect. So don't look at another student's post and think that as long as I only do what they did, then it will be enough. Because many of those were posted by football players who A, didn't have any instruction over it, and B, chose not to take the time to do it correctly. So remember, if you're looking at an example, you want to look at my example, because most of the peer posts are wrong. Just because you type something into a Dropbox does not make it correct. So I just want to make that clear. All right, to look at an example peer reply, you want to scroll back up to George's post, which is the 4th post in this R3 style discussion. So again, I start with my title, my author. The title is underlined and italicized. Anytime you type a title of a book, it has to be either underlined or italicized. Both titles and authors have to have correct capitalization. So, Dear George, because that's who I'm writing to, and George's book is Abraham Lincoln by Kenneth Davis. So I'm responding to a book about Abraham Lincoln. All right. So, Dear George, you need to explain how the style, the purpose, or the audience is the same, how the style, purpose, or audience is different, and a question about style, purpose, or audience. So I chose to show an example of each of those, but you can choose your similar, your difference, and your question about any of these three. So they could, all of your responses could be about style, all of them could be about purpose, all of them could be about audience, or it could be a combination of this.
So we could only use one.
No, in your response, you can talk about any of these three things. So you can't talk about narration. You can talk about these three things.
But we don't have to do all three.
No. You can choose one of those three or a combination of them. All right, so the style of our books is similar in that yours is written for a lower reading level and mine is also intended for a younger generation that still utilizes their imaginations in exploring literature. The purpose of our books is different in that yours is meant to inform about President Abraham Lincoln and mine is meant to question society's use of technology. And last but not least, a question. And this question is about the intended audience. Even though your book is intended for a younger audience, were you able to enjoy the author's writing style? So again, that is similar, different, question. Sincerely, comma, and my name. So as you can see, that gives you an example post and example peer reply. When is this due?
Monday.
Monday at 4 o'clock.